Good evening and welcome to our regular meeting of council this March 6, 2023. Get into it. So moved by Sam McDonnell, seconded by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that the March 6, 2023 council meeting of the Township of South Glengarry now be opened at 7 p.m. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. We will now rise for the singing of our national anthem. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest that anybody's aware? Oh, Councillor Jaworski?
I have one. Yes. Thank you. Through you, Mayor McDonald. I have an interest on the, I'm sorry, I missed the committee appointments, as a member of my family is being considered for the committees.
Thank you. Any others? Okay, seeing none, we'll get into the approval of the agenda. Moved by Martin Lang, seconded by Trevor Bougie. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry approve the agenda as circulated. Are there any questions? Oh, an amendment, sorry.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. We do have two items that have been requested to be pulled from the consent agenda to items for consideration. Those being item 10E, the resolution regarding the accuracy of the voters list, and item 10F, the resolution regarding barriers for women in politics.
Okay, so I guess that is agenda as amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. Now on to the approval of the minutes. Did anybody notice any corrections that needed to be made for the minutes? Okay, moved by Trevor Bougie, seconded by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that the minutes of the following meetings be adopted as circulated. February 21st, 2023, regular meeting. February 22nd, 2023, special meeting. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. We have no presentations or delegations this evening, so we will move into action requests. 7A, Mr. Jane, so it's the 2023 taxation and wastewater budgets. Moved by Stephanie Jaworski, seconded by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that Staff Report 30-2023 be received and that the Council for the Township of South Glengarry agrees in principle to the overall taxation levy requirement of $10,320,509 and further agrees in principle to the taxation and wastewater budgets as presented and amended on February 22nd, 2023. Mr. Jane?
Good evening, Council. So as Council will recall, we met on December 2nd, 2022 and February 22nd, 2023 to discuss the 2023 operating and capital budgets. During budget deliberations, Council decided to defer the Second Line Road Rehabilitation Project to future years and to instead redirect the estimated debt servicing costs to reduce the 2023 levy requirement, and to increase the transfer into the Bridges and Structures Reserve. Administration is bringing forth the staff report to agree in principle to the 2023 taxation levy requirement, the 2023 residential tax rate, and the 2023 operating and capital budgets for both taxation and water wastewater. Administration will be bringing forth the taxation bylaw at a subsequent council meeting for adoption once the county's budget and tax ratios have been formally adopted by county council. By approving the staff report, council will be setting the 2023 taxation levy requirement at $10,320,509. This would represent a 7.8% increase over the levy requirement in 2022 and represent a 6.81% increase to the residential tax rate over 2022. The water and wastewater rates have been set in accordance with bylaw 105-2021. So at this point, I'd like to answer any questions if there are any. Thank you.
Ms. Shaughnessy, can you make Councillor Jaworski take the whole page for the moment, just so you can see her perfectly? Okay, great. All right, are there any questions from around the table? Councillor Jaworski?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor McDonald. I guess I have some comments and maybe a question at the end. So I guess this budget I find has been the most difficult out of the 5 that I've been involved in. Not that the others were easy, but this one's definitely the most difficult. So I do want to thank Mr. James for all the work that he's put into answering all our questions, all of my questions, including, I did a line by line review of the budget, and I had several questions from that. So, it's obviously evident from that exercise that staff was very diligent in their work to bring in, a responsible budget. And I do think that, generally speaking, this is a responsible budget because, the construction inflation index, being, well above 20%, and, fuel increases being, well above that and representing, several hundreds of thousands of dollars of increased costs that we can't control. We're below that, and it was important for me that the budget fall, at or below the consumer price index of 6.8% to be fair to our residents. Even though you could argue that, we're really facing that construction index increase when it comes to our, work that the township does. But I guess I wanted to speak a little bit to a resident who had reached out to me, and this is a resident, they've done their homework, but this was also a resident who was of modest means, and, we do have folks across the township who are of modest means. This person was on a fixed income due to injury. And they walked me through, sort of what, even though we're just on the township portion of the increase, it's not, it's less than $100 for a typical, that median resident. But, she walked me through her budget about how, that few dollars does that impact her, and it impacts her food budget. And we all know the cost of food has increased dramatically. So, this person understood, what our thinking was or my thinking was in terms of, challenged me on what could be reduced. And so I guess to be, that person was feeling a bit uncomfortable in terms of financially. And I feel that's important for us also to feel a bit uncomfortable as we move forward with this. And so, although I think generally we're in the right spot, I do feel that, there might be a little bit more that we could push down, just a little bit more. There was a little bit of reserve dollars that we could put towards lowering the tax rate also. And I know we're doing some good work in terms of ensuring that all our facilities across all the townships, our recreation facilities, those that serve our senior population, North Lancaster, Green Valley, all across, as well as our children. The children across the township, we're bringing back the facility operator levels to not to what they were pre-COVID, but more. But I know that because we were so stretched thin in that department, that we did have, overtime costs that should come down. So I'm thinking that's also a place where we could perhaps find a few, thousands of dollars there as well to try and bring that tax rate down just a little bit more. So again, generally speaking, I think it's responsible. I do think we've pushed hard, but I think there's maybe a little bit more we could do. Those are the comments that I wanted to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jaworski. Are there any other questions or comments from around the table or? Oh, Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I hear you, Councillor Dworsky, but I'd still like to pass what we have here. I think we've done, it's tough on everybody. And we've all got people calling us and sending us emails. But I think staff has done a good job at getting what they can out, and you've said so yourself. I know you talked a little bit about reserves. Mr. Jens, are we not dropping reserve by 600,000 this year? So, I mean, I think that's quite a bit. I don't know that we want to, because whatever we do, if we really, really were to drop reserves and so forth, it just makes things tougher next year as well. We don't want to have another big increase next year. I think this is the year to do it, just, you know, because of the position we're in, the inflation that we have out there. So I'm ready to accept this in principle the way it is. I do realize that it's tough for people. I accept that. But it's tough for everybody. It's tough for our staff. It's tough for us to continue doing business with the inflation that we're facing. So I think just to acknowledge that it's out there and it's hard for people, but I think I think staff has done a pretty good job to get it to where we are.
We'll go Councillor McDonnell and then Councillor Bougie.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I agree with Councillor Jaworski in the sense that, yes, this is definitely the hardest budget we've done in 5 years. Myself, I don't like going up this much. I do appreciate that we are at the 6.8 consumer index. This point, I think I'm going to agree with Councillor Lang, or Deputy Mayor Lang. We're hitting our reserves hard. We have in the past as well, the past couple of years, and if we don't start to maintain them, I agree. It is just going to be another hard budget next year, and I think if you look, I know we've both had the same frustration, Councillor Jaworski, in the sense that I don't think we like being as high as we are, and in comparison to our counterparts, but at the same time, I'm starting to live with a little more ease looking at the past 4 budgets that we had done, and in comparison to this one, on like an aggregated look, I guess, over those years. It's unfortunate that it has to be a big jump in one, but I think at this point we're facing severe inflation. We're not at 6.8 inflation as a municipality. We all know right now that municipal inflation is more or less around 20%. And I think that's the one fear I have, and I think Deputy Mayor Lang had said it, and myself, and I think all of us have recognized it 6 months ago when we were all talking about where our taxes should be. It's quite scary what our budget is going to have to sustain and how we're going to maintain all of our infrastructure, let alone not doing any of the nice things or the want-to-dos, just what it's going to cost us to maintain our core infrastructure going forward. And I think at this point, I can live a little bit better at night with this budget where it is right now. So I'll be all right to agree in principle to it. If there is a minor change that can be made on the backside at some point in the next number of weeks as the counties adopt theirs, great. But I won't hold anybody's feet to the fire at this point for that. I think we've done enough of that, and I think we've really been hard on council and staff in the last couple of weeks getting through this budget. So I think we've done pretty near all we can do.
Councillor Bougie.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to thank Mr. Jane for preparing this budget. It has been a lengthy process, and there's been a lot of good debate. But I'm having a hard time accepting this just now that I've had time to reflect. I feel like this year should be about finding efficiencies, not adding. And there's one position in particular that I'd like to see potentially come off of the books, and that'd be the finance position, which would probably drop our tax requirement a whole %. And I'd like to see some of that go into reserves for roads and infrastructure, and part to lower the tax rate. I don't know if there's appetite around the table for that, but I feel like this is a year, again, to find efficiencies, and if that position is really warranted, then he can make a case at strategic planning, and we can review it again. But that's how I kind of see it. We need to find some tax dollars or money to go more into roads and infrastructure for our residents. I've had a lot of residents reach out, concerned with the tax rate, fixed budgets, or fixed incomes on their end. And I hear them. It has been very difficult with consumer price index and construction costs. But if we're going to look at an area where we can find some savings, I think that's it. And then at a later date, we can reevaluate. But again, I don't know if there's appetite around the table for that, but I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, in an effort to be more Roberts ruly, is there anybody who would like to speak perhaps in favor or to that point, or oppose that point at this present time, just because it has been tabled? Councillor Jaworski?
Thank you, through you, Mayor McDonald. And if I didn't understand your guidance just there, please let me know if I'm going off track. But to the role of the financial analyst, and again, I'll refer to this conversation I had with this resident, and the resident challenged me on, what is there in this budget? I'm sure there's something, they said, that could be cut back. There's probably something that's discretionary. And I just spoke with them and I said, if there's probably one thing on the budget that is, I would say, discretionary, is the financial analyst. But then I explained to them the reason I thought it was still a good idea was because the main reason for me is we have this, we have tax arrears. We have accumulating tax arrears. We don't seem to be getting, the capacity that we have in the finance department, it's just over time, it's not there to be sustainable in terms of, always regularly being on top of that number. It goes in cycles, and when we get on top of it, something else is not getting the same attention it deserves. And so when I explained that when I had that discussion with this resident about how, getting on top of back taxes, and for me, that was an issue of fairness to ensure that not only are folks who, can pay their taxes or make sure they're current, but also folks who may have difficulty, that we have, that discussion happening so that agreements can be put in place so that, we try to keep them as current as possible. And I guess a resident sort of, kind of agreed with me in terms of the issue of fairness, that everyone needs to do their fair share. And if we need someone to keep on top of that's an important thing to make sure that it's, the burden is shared fairly. And also on the issue of the financial analyst, again, it's probably the one that if I had to cut somewhere would be the one I cut. But in terms of what I feel we need to do as a township, and part of the issue with this budget that bothers me, or that I have difficulty with, I shouldn't say that bothers me, that's difficult for me, is that we did so well, we brought it down, we've been very tight, and now we have to jump up. And I feel if we have that financial analyst, we can finally put in place a good long-term financial plan where we're going to have a rate that is much more stable, much more long-term vision, so that we're not going to be doing this up and down, sort of, similar to what happened with the water rates, not that long ago, sort of shock to the system and to the rate payers there. It's not, that's not for me fair. And I think having a long-term vision, overall, and it's sort of what Councillor McDonnell mentioned about, like when we look at the past 4 years, yes, this budget is higher, but over the past 5 years, the aggregate is still very good in comparison with our peers. And I think by having this financial analyst role, we'll get even better. We'll be able to dial it in much better, have a more consistent rate, and have better planning. So I think I am in favor of it, but as I said, if that is probably the one that is the lower down the list for me in terms of priority, but I still am in support of it.
Okay, is there anybody who wishes to speak? Deputy Mayor Lang?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Yeah, I'll speak to Councillor Bougie's idea for the financial analyst. I'm in favor of keeping them. I've heard nothing. We've debated it quite a bit, obviously, and I hope people do realize that, these positions were talked about, quite a while before just coming to the table today. I have heard nothing new that makes me think that we would be better not to. I think Councillor Jaworski's right. I'm hoping that this position is going to actually make us money in the long run. I think we need to get a handle on some things in the finance department, namely back taxes of whatever we're at, 35% or something, which we've known for some time and been trying to work on, but it just haven't had the manpower to do it. And I think we need somebody in there that can get this stuff done. So I'm in favor of leaving that position in there. Just something that and we've mentioned it, I just want to mention it one more time. I know that we're at a high rate at 6.8% increase, but don't forget we dropped 3% a couple of years ago. We brought it back to where we were. So if you go over the last 4 years, we are a very low rate of increase. And maybe we would have been smarter in hindsight just to gradually work our way up, and we could have put a rate in this year of under 3%, and we would have been exactly where we are now if we had not dropped, 3 years ago. So it does seem like a huge increase, but it isn't that much if we had, if we'd kind of held the course. But we did what we thought best at the time. We were in the middle of COVID. We were doing, what we thought we could to help our residents. And I still stand by that decision. I think we made the best decision at the time that we thought. But in hindsight, maybe if we hadn't done that, this would have been a lot easier decision today, and we wouldn't be at the rate we're at. But average it over the 4 years, it's not that bad.
We'll go CAO Mills and then Councillor McDonnell.
Okay, so through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll just state that I wasn't here the last 2 meetings, and I had to be away from the office for 3 weeks for health reasons, and I'll be straight on that. But what I will say is that it's clear that council's not all on the same page. If council's not going to all be on the same page, then I would like it to be directed back to me that we will meet again with staff and that we'll set an alternate date for a final budget meeting. Just to debate positions in open session here, to go back and forth and to argue is not productive.
If I may, I feel that the conversation, there is really only one item that's being discussed. I think this is productive, so if I can have Councillor McDonnell make his comment.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm actually going to concur with the CAO. I don't think it's proper that we go through this right now. We're not speaking budget at this point. If we want to debate, if we want to take Councillor Bougie's point back and debate it, we can, or we can go to this right now and call a vote. But I don't think this is the forum to debate. So if Councillor Bougie does feel strong about that notion, I'd suggest we go back to a budget meeting.
Okay, Councillor Bougie, how do you feel about that? Because I think the budget, for the most part, it seems like everything but one item is just being discussed at this point.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, it is not just that one item, but it feels like 3 members have decided, right? So I can live with that at the moment, and we can move on.
Okay, no, that's great. That is, we are a democracy, so majority will carry on that one. Yeah, I guess, I had a few things just to mention that for the most part, I think this budget, to share with the public, it's not that we're spending more so much, it's that a lot of things are costing us more. You look at your roads costs, your anything to do with gasoline, right? Garbage, recycling, those costs have gone up quite a bit. We're returning to post-pandemic or pre-pandemic levels of service to recreation. There were 6 people before, now there's 5, because we don't want to hide from what we're doing, so I'm just kind of laying it out there. We have some changes to our roads, making them the full time. They were working 50 hours anyway. Replacing a contract at the dump, which probably will see some savings. So there's a lot of things out there where we're kind of like doing things in a way that supports, like who does it benefit? That was a question, and I did campaign on it. Like ask yourself, who does it benefit? And all these things do benefit the citizen. I might be partial to Councillor Bougie's opinion, but that is 2 of 3. So I will call this to vote because, as CAO Mills and Councillor McDonnell mentioned, like if it's, I don't think we have to go through the whole motions. I think we can vote on it tonight. Councillor McDonnell?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would feel better if council is unanimous. I'm fine going to a quick hour meeting or 2-hour meeting to relitigate it. If that will put yourself and Councillor Bougie at ease, I'm fine doing that. I know staff is probably staring through me right now, but I'm fine going through that motion if it's going to give council unanimous consent. But it's just if we are doing this for and out in the public that we all don't feel comfortable, let's not waste anybody's time. If we're truly not comfortable right now and we can't vote unanimously, it's the budget, it should be voted unanimously because that just sets the tone for the year.
Councilor Mills?
Okay, so through you, Mr. Mayor, from what I've heard from council tonight, there was a discussion about a position. Then there was also, that was Councilor Bougie, and also from Councilor Jaworski, uncomfortable about the actual increase in the tax rate. So they're related, but also I think if it's going to be discussed, that you would like staff to come back with some alternatives to reducing the tax rate, then it needs to be everything considered, not just one thing.
All right, I guess I have a slight difference of opinion, but that's all right. Would council wish then to defer this motion and then discuss the item as a whole? Because would that be preferable? Because I don't, to be quite honest, from the chair side, we may not be consensus, and once the budget is supported, it is the will of council to support it, and that is fine. It's a good budget. It's just we have one item. That's it. Oh, Mr. Jane.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to speak to some of the points that have been raised here today. As far as finding efficiencies in the budget, Councillor Bougie, staff have done exactly that. Staff have met for a period of about 2 months with long-form meetings, going through line by line on every single item to identify where the efficiencies lie. What we have to keep in mind is we have been providing easements to our residents over the last several years due to COVID, and it's to the township's credit. However, the COVID mirage of low pricing has firmly disappeared. We're in a period where we have inflation that is 20 to 40-year highs, and we have to be able to respond to those challenges. This budget, I firmly believe, represents administration's best efforts to keep the tax rate low while also being sustainable for the future. As far as using reserves, I would like to remind council that the township started 2022 with about $14.5 million in reserves. Reserves were hit very hard in 2022, and we're projecting to end 2023 with about $8.5 million in reserves. Further, using reserves to quote-unquote stabilize the tax rate is very much a temporary measure. The $10,320,509 as a levy requirement, that represents what our true operational costs are. And so to use reserves to reduce that levy requirement, again, is just another mirage, and we're gonna have to deal with it in the future. So we're just delaying a problem from this year to the next year. And then as far as the finance staff is concerned, I don't believe that this is an issue that needs to be relitigated. We've had a closed session meeting to highlight some of the challenges and some of the pitfalls that the finance department is currently facing. And I'd like to reiterate that finance is heading into a very, very tough and high workload year. And we simply need financial strength, and we need increased bandwidth in the department to be able to deal with our challenges. And a lot of those challenges have been highlighted to council in closed session, and some of them haven't. But again, I don't think that this is the forum to relitigate that issue. I just want to reiterate that it is going to be a very, very heavy workload going into 2023. And we do hope that eventually the finance department is able to generate some sort of revenue for the township through investments into bond funds and into GICs as well, and to bring down the tax arrears. We're tracking to be about 32% on tax arrears in 2022. Again, just to reiterate, a township of our size should be in the 15 to 20% range. So those are significant challenges that the finance department is currently facing. So that's it. Thank you.
I just can, like, the reason for me to, as you said, you don't want to litigate it. I also don't want to put a burden on staff's time if we have the majority of council. I do appreciate the want to be unanimous, and I, like, without trying to be overly difficult, like, as I was being asked to justify this, that was the one thing that some of the moderate individuals who supported me wanted me to voice, and it would be true, and that was that whole, you know, be good to staff, be good to council, be good to the community, and be good to my own personal values, and there is an imbalance there. But at 6.8%, I don't think, like, for myself, like, that is a good amount. It's just a little tweak, but I don't think that's going to solve itself with another meeting. So, like, I would prefer to call it, but if council wishes to defer. Councillor McDonnell, and then Deputy Mayor Lang.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think at this point, if another open meeting is going to, if we want to go through it again and it's going to put everyone at ease, I would prefer to see it pass unanimously. I don't feel a budget. We are 5 people sitting around a table. We should be able to come to some kind of consensus here and have everybody happy and be able to support it. So if this, for yourself, for Councillor Bougee, and for Councillor Jaworski, if there's 3 of us around this table that all have a current issue with this budget, then we can sit down and hash it out. If we're all comfortable supporting it as it is tonight, I'm fine with that. I would just like to see some kind of a true consensus, and as opposed to playing like out in the open that, well, if there's an issue for everybody, fine, we should relitigate that one issue, but there appears to be 3 separate issues here, or 2 separate issues, I guess, with 3 people. So if we want to go to another quick meeting, I'm fine with it. I'd like to hear what the Deputy Mayor has to say as well. You know, I think we're maybe more on the same page and maybe ready to pass this as is. Myself may be a little more reluctant, but I'm not opposed to where we're at right now.
Thank you, Councillor McDonnell, and then Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I'm comfortable with the budget the way it is, but I want everybody to be comfortable with it. And when I say I'm comfortable, it's not because it's an easy budget, but I think we're at the point where I think we need to be. It's a hard decision to make, and I hope everybody here is ready to make that hard decision. I just worry that sometimes it's easy to say, well, there's 3 of them in favor, let them vote for it, I'll vote against it, and it covers my butt if, you know, residents won't be mad at me because I voted against it, even though they have no solution that's different than the budget we're at right now. So, I'm not accusing anybody of that. I just want to make sure that we think about that before we say that, you know, we're against it. Because if we don't have something better that we can put forward and say, well, this is what we'd like to do instead, and it makes sense to everybody, don't just take the easy road out. It's not an easy budget to pass. It isn't. That's what they elected us for, is to do these things, and sometimes it's hard decisions we have to make, but we talked about it a lot. Some people put in some really good questions. I read them all. I read the responses. I'm comfortable with where we are. I think we've done a good job here. I think we're at the place where we need to be. But if somebody has a solution or something that they think is better, or they, you know, like not just saying, well, I'm not comfortable with the finance person, what's the solution? Give me a solution that I can be happy with. So if there is another solution, then, you know, I'm okay with that. But otherwise, I'm comfortable. I'd like to see everybody on the same page, because otherwise I just feel that some people are, you know, maybe not wanting to make those hard decisions.
Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor McDonald. So in terms of my comfort level with the budget, I mean, the items that I had mentioned in terms of potentially making some modifications are probably in the $20,000 to $30,000. So not very large amounts. In the end, on someone's pocketbook, you know, probably, you know, we're talking probably less than, you know, a few dollars, I mean, a couple of dollars or a few dollars. So I'm not suggesting to hold it up based on that. I mean, if everyone else was on this, if we're all like, yeah, let's try and do a little bit, you know, like I mentioned, an overtime amount that probably will come in below, so we could probably adjust down there a little bit from a reserve that was mentioned at the last meeting. But again, like, I'm not going to, you know, I feel we have tried very hard, and I'm not going to hold up on that, and I can vote in favor of the budget as it is presented. But I just wanted to clarify in terms of my level of discomfort. I'm not suggesting a 1% cut at this point, because I do feel staff has found efficiencies. I feel like, considering all the other pressures we're at that we can't control, like fuel and heating costs, and, you know, increases from contracts because of fuel adjustments, they've found efficiencies. And I feel that, as Deputy Mayor Lang has said, that the financial analyst role will probably make us money, certainly. And if it's not in the first year, it'll be over time. So I think it's something that is worth those, you know, like, in the end, to, you know, a median resident, it is worth those dollars. I think it's the right decision there. So I can move forward with it as is, unless someone else wants to try and, you know, little bits of money here and there. But as it stands, I don't want to delay for just you know, a very, very small amount.
I saw Councillor Bougie and Councillor Bougie.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I mean, I was very open saying around the 5% mark when we first started talking about budget. I did have a solution, and whether, I mean, that is a pretty drastic help or decrease to the budget by removing that position. Whether we contract it out somehow, I don't know. If the main position or the main goal is for tax arrears, maybe we can contract that out somehow. I mean, that is a solution, but if it's not the will of council, I can accept that, and we can move forward. And I would like to see quarterly updates on our progress, if that's the case, with the finance department, to ensure that that work is getting done. But if that's the case, and if that can be done, I can agree in principle. I just wanted to put that out to the floor, to council, to see if there was any appetite for it. Being that, I mean, it is a difficult budget. We all said it. We all went through it line by line. We spent many hours going through it. So, I mean, if there was one thing, that was the thing that could be done to reduce it. And I wanted to bring that forward, and I did. And I mean, if we're going to go down this road, I can accept that. And I just want to make sure we're going to get the value for our dollars in this position.
Yeah, then, in reading this, the principle of overall taxation levy requirement of $10,320,000, that's essentially what we're agreeing to. And I've always said that number was okay with me. There are some things, and thank you, Deputy Mayor, for I'm not intentionally being difficult to be political. I think during the whole campaign, you know, some of my fundamental values on government. So I think it would be actually easier for me to agree, because we get along as a council. We debate very well, I find. So for that regard, like, again, I'm not trying to be difficult, and it seems like we have the will of council. So that, like, it might be one of those, like, just visions of government as a whole that I may not have a similar vision as all of council, and it's, as we often say, like, probably 95% the same. And this number is okay to me. We mentioned that, like, 12% for buildings, 12% for gasoline, plus 20% you mentioned for the Desiprints already coming back. Like, things are costing us more. So as this is read, and I understand that budgets are not, like, not everybody gets everything in a budget. So I'll just read the resolution again. So moved by Stephanie Jaworski, seconded by Sam Actonel, just so we can read it through. So be it resolved that staff report 30/2023 be received and that council for the Township of Suckling Area agrees in principle to the overall taxation levy requirement, 10,320,509, and further agrees in principle to the taxation wastewater budgets as presented and amended on February 22nd, 2023. I think that can be mostly agreed. I just, like, as a chair, I know I'm not supposed to speak too much. I tried to chair. I just, like, I fundamentally have differences, and I want to be honest about that. It's more uncomfortable for me to say that than to just agree naturally. That's why I want, like, I don't know if that will change. It seems like I'm on an island, right? And that's okay by me. And I'm not, there's no political bent to this. It is like a foundational value that I have. And it is, so in that, like, I would like to call a vote if council's okay, because we can progress. And then I guess we'll have strategic planning, and hopefully there can be some very fruit-bearing conversations there, because yeah. So would there be a will to call it? And oh, yes, sorry, Mr. Jane?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to clarify one item. So as the resolution is read, by passing the resolution, again, just for clarity's sake, we will be setting the taxation and water and wastewater budgets as presented and amended. So that would set the budget as it was presented during the February 22nd, 2023 meeting.
Yeah, so then I'll just confer with the clerk. Okay, thank you. Councillor McDonnell?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Do you have appetite to go to a final meeting? As it sits right now, would you like to, this non-political question, would you like to go back and feel more comfortable with this?
I suppose I truly believe that I have the comfort that I will garner. Like, in that, like, the rationalization has been explained. It's a good rationalization. I just disagree with a portion of it. So, like, and at a deeper level, like a deep level, as I say, I do want to be agreeable, and like, it's easy to move forward. We'll see the benefit, and then we'll just have the report backs, and hopefully I will be proven completely, like, it will prove as a net positive, because I think there's that opportunity. You mentioned HST, et cetera. And I do thank everybody for allowing me to kind of, we're talking budget, but there's only one item. I did feel we went through this fairly quickly getting to here, and that's why I did push. I was hoping for a March 15th meeting so I could have this conversation, but it was the will of council to bring it here. So I do apologize for perhaps hijacking this portion of the meeting. Yeah. And
It's also the will of council to go to another meeting, Mr. Mayor, if you prefer.
Clerk Campo?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So there is a motion on the floor that it does need to be voted on. So if council wishes to have another meeting, you can defer the motion, but it is on the floor, and so whether it's called to a vote to carry or not, or if you decide to postpone, if you're going to have another meeting, it would be a postponement, but otherwise the motion is on the floor.
I would prefer to vote on it, because once the budget's set, then that is our decision, and then we drive the bus, and it seems like we want to drive the bus in this way. So like, it's getting behind it. And again, I don't want, like, I'm not trying to be political. That's not my intent. Mayor Lang?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I think some of the things that you're talking about, and you did very briefly mention it, are things that we're going to need to be discussing in strategic planning. And tonight we're talking about the budget. So I don't know. As long as everybody's come, I'm ready to vote now.
Councillor Jaworski, are you ready to vote presently too? Is that fine? Okay. Councillor Bougie? Okay. Moved by Stephanie Jaworski, seconded by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that staff report 30/2023 be received and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry agrees in principle to the overall taxation levy requirement of $10,320,509 and further agrees in principle to the taxation and the water budgets as presented as amended on February 22nd, 2022, or February 22nd, 2023. All those in favor? Any of opposed? Carried. Action request 7B, CL, Charland Recreation Committee, Community Center Refrigeration Plant Condenser. Ms. Servage, I'll read the motion while you're coming up. Moved by Stephanie Jaworski, seconded by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that staff report 31/2023 be received and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry proceed with Simcoe Refrigeration for the supply and install of a condenser for $118,789 plus HST, and furthermore, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign all applicable documents. Ms. Servage?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So yeah, this report is to award the supply and installation of the condenser for the Charland Recreation Center to Simcoe Refrigeration. The purchase of this would be through the cooperative procurement, which saves on time and money. You'll see in the report that the cost is $118,789 plus HST. This price factored in their new price increase that is effective tomorrow. However, if we were to award it this evening, we can save approximately $2,000, as you'll see in the report. This project and cost is included in the proposed 2023 capital budget. Everything else is included in the report, but I'm recommending that we award it to Simcoe Refrigeration unless council has any questions.
Councillor Bougie?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Servage, for your presentation. Just to refresh my memory, what was the budget amount for the condenser? And then I have another question about the company that's doing the work. Did they give you any assurance that the work can be done prior to our August date of getting the ice in? How confident are you in that?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So the budget set for this project is $120,000. That was presented at capital budget in December. And we do work with Simcoe Refrigeration, and they're aware of when our plant opens in August, or when we started up in August. So they're aware of our timelines, and they can work within that.
Okay, thank you, and I am in favor, and I like the idea of the discount prior to tomorrow, so thank you for that.
And may I ask Jessica about the LAS? They give you the price, but it's generally a local distributor or a local with Simcoe, like they get a local rep to do the work most times?
So Simcoe is our, do you mean the people that work at Simcoe, or?
Oh, just the LAS procurement, right?
Yeah, so Simcoe is one of the suppliers through LAS that's applied to be procured through LAS, so that's how that works.
Perfect, yeah, because that's a great savings on administrative time, so I'm glad that council, the previous term, allowed for that. Are there any other questions? Okay, great. All those in favor of the motion as it was read? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. So moving to action request 7C, Safety on Wheels Bike Rodeo, Optimus Club of Lancaster. I'll go ahead because you're here.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the Lancaster Optimus Club is looking to put on their annual Safety on Wheels Bike Rodeo. In the past, this event typically took place at the Charland Recreation Center. But then last year, because of the renovations that we had going on here, they ended up going over to the Williamstown Public School. Now that Williamstown Public School is having renovations done, they would like to return back to our facility. So They'll require the use of the arena floor on May 18th until about 8 p.m. for bike drop-off, and they'll also require the use of the floor and up here in Tartan Hall on May 19th for their event. It's also noted that fire services, Mr. Robertson had let me know that they also volunteer at this event as well and provide their support. They're looking to have hall rental fees waived, which would be hall rental and the floor rental fee waived, which would be a total of $413. So this evening, we're just basically asking to have that fee waived.
Okay, are there any questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Lang?
All in favor?
Perfect. Yeah. Okay, so all those in favor? Any, sorry. Was Councillor Jaworski have a question? Did you? Oh, go ahead, Councillor.
It was a comment. It's a comment. It's fantastic. All the kids love it, and it fits. It's active transportation and ensuring kids can do it safely. So I'm all for it.
Thank you for that, Councillor McNell. So all those in favor of the motion as read? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. We'll now move to item 7D, Raisin River Canoe Race, request for services. Mr. Robertson and Ms. Servage. I'll read that resolution as Mr. Robertson walks up. Moved by Martin Lang, seconded by Trevor Bougie. Be it resolved that Staff Report 33, 2023 be received and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry approves the request from the Raisin River Conservation Authority for a donation in the amount of $2,557.42 to cover the cost of shore-based water rescue services and the Charland Recreation Hall rental fee for the Raisin River Canoe Race. Please go ahead.
Good evening, Council, and through you, Mr. Mayor. The Raisin River Canoe Race is happening this year. The annual canoe race is happening on April the 15th. This evening's staff report shared with Ms. Servage and myself will speak to the various services that we assist the canoe race organizers with. One of those being shore-based water rescue services by the fire department. We station members along various portions of the canoe route, the race route, and provide rescue services as needed. So the fire staff payroll for that day runs around $2,250, $2,250, and that would be the cost that fire services would be looking to provide in kind. So
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So the other portion of their request is to have the Tartan Hall upstairs, which is shown in the report as 109.92, or sorry, 197.50. The other portion is our recreation staff time, because we will be opening up, as in the past, the showers for the race participants before the ceremony upstairs. And then the other portion, which is we discussed at our last meeting, was the mural or the painting to go up on the wall to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the canoe race. So those are the requests, and all of the amounts are outlined in the report.
one other item of note, also through Mr. Mayor, on both the recommendation and item 9, the impact on the 2022 budget, it's noted that the funds will be allocated from the Grants and Donations Fund. That item has been modified in our, we've had another GL added, so basically it's called Roads and Recreation Community Services, so that's where these funds will be allocated to, as opposed to in the past where it was to Grants and Donations Fund. It's the same, the meaning is the same of the two line items, but it's just allocated in a different location. So.
Great. Any questions or participants around the table for this canoe race? Bring back Martin Lang. I remember, or Deputy Mayor Lang, I heard you wanted a few years back. Okay. No, and Stephanie's not? Nope. Okay, great. All those in favor with the motion as it's read? Carried. So we will move to bylaws. Bylaw 8A, amended bylaw, committee appointments. Ms. Campo, and I believe Councilor Jaworski has to be, should probably remove yourself. Great.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Council will recall at our January 16th meeting, a bylaw was passed to appoint members to the various committees of council. At that time, we did not have a sufficient number of applications for the CIP Advisory Committee as well as the Heritage Advisory Committee, so we issued a second round of applications for those two committees. In that second round, we did get drum up some interest. We got some applications which council reviewed in closed session at our last council meeting. So the bylaw that's before you this evening essentially repeals the bylaw that was passed in January and adds the CIP and Heritage Committee members for appointment this evening. Subject to any questions? That's
Are there any questions or comments about the committees? No? Great. I don't think I read this one before. So moved by Trevor Bougie, seconded by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that staff report 34, 2023 be received and that bylaw 18. Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. I believe we had two items being pulled from the consent agenda. The first one was 10E, resolution, accuracy of voters list from the Township of Ashfield, Colborne, and Wawanoosh. I don't know who that was. Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, just bringing the page up. Not that there's I don't need to read anything off it. I think we all know, we were all closely watching the voters list during the last election last fall, and there were quite a few instances where things were off. I mean, I had members of extended this, like cousins of mine that had never lived in this township, didn't have any connections to this township, were on the voter list and had contacted me, and it was in error and they were removed. But it just seems like the list could be a lot better. And I know it's not us that makes that list. I think it's done through Impact, but whatever we can do to encourage that list to be improved, I think would make people feel a little more comfortable.
Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a question for the clerk on this one. There was talk at one point we would be following the Election Ontario list, which also has its flaws, of course, like every election list, but surely should have less than what we saw in our 2022 election municipally.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so for the 2026 municipal election, the management of the voters list for all municipalities will be switching from MPAC to Elections Ontario. And I believe that this resolution is is not necessarily directed at the MPAC list, but is more so encouraging for a permanent list of electors, whether it's through Elections Ontario or wherever. So as your clerk, I would certainly be in favor of council supporting this resolution because as Deputy Mayor Lang stated, I mean, the errors election after election, even after we at the municipality make our revisions and send them back, and then the next election comes and we're running into the same errors. And it's certainly frustrating for us as administration. So I would appreciate certainly council supporting this resolution.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, thanks for that. And I guess it probably will pose its own issues as well, given Elections Ontario is based on where you live as opposed to how we work municipally with land ownership as well mixed into that. But I have no problem supporting it as well. I don't think it really outlines in there that it strictly wants the Elections Ontario list. So I've no problem supporting it, and hopefully we will see better results going forward with the Ontario elections results.
Okay, great. I'm somewhat unfamiliar. Do we prepare a support resolution for next council, or can we just support it and you send something to this municipality?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, typically we would bring it back at the next meeting to give notice of the motion. So I can plan to have that on the next meeting.
Oh, great. Please do. All right, then we'll move to 10F, resolution, barriers for women in politics, Town of Grimsby. Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I brought it forward, and I think it's a no-brainer. We're doing what we can, but anything we can do to make it easier. And I mean, we all go to the conventions, and we all, even just sitting around this table, it's very seldom that we see equal numbers of men and women, and if there's anything we can do to make that better, I think we should support it. So I just wanted to support the resolution that came from Town of Grimsby, and if everybody else is in favor, maybe next council meeting they can bring back something to support it.
Councillor Jaworski?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor McDonald, I wanted to thank Deputy Mayor Lang for bringing this one forward. I did look at it, but I felt sort of awkward about bringing it forward on my own, so I didn't mention it. And then to hear Deputy Mayor Lang bring it forward, I appreciate that very much. Certainly, it's true. Women are underrepresented. We see that when we go to conferences. We see it at our own table. And certainly some women out there face a lot of challenges, harassment, et cetera. And I'm very fortunate in that I feel very fortunate that I've always been at council tables last term, this term, at the counties as well, where I felt very much that my colleagues treated me with the utmost respect. So I'm thankful for that. But certainly it's a challenge for many. But it is a challenge in our areas to get women to run. The slates are always very, very heavily, there's very few women on the slate of candidates that present themselves. So I'm hoping that, as this resolution states, that Grimsby put forward about taking steps for the future to ensure that it's, welcoming to all individuals, but that, maybe as election season comes close to, the next time that we can think about what we can do as a municipality, or even maybe at the county level, to ensure that, efforts to get people informed or help them become educated on how to run or how they can be supported in how running, that's something that we give some serious thought to when the time comes. So thank you again, Deputy Mayor Lang, for bringing it forward.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Lang. And having done some research on this for South Dundas, we went over their policies. There are municipalities out there that do provide childcare, some options or an allowance for something like that, and that it can be, and maybe I'm old in that, in your stereotypical thing, like childcare sometimes falls to, well, it doesn't matter who it falls to, but sometimes that's a barrier to come to council or participate with council. So that's something that we can look at some other time. But I do appreciate, as you said, Councillor Jaworski, is it's a resolution now, but there can be steps made to make it real, right? Because so yeah, thank you very much. And anyone else have any further comments? Right, thank you for bringing that one forward, Deputy Mayor Lang. Oh yes, please do bring it forward and we'll support it. Yes. Okay, there is no closed session, so I have the confirming a bylaw or the consent agenda bylaw motion. So moved by Sam McDonnell, seconded by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry accepts the consent agenda. All those in favor? Any if opposed? Carried. Seeing none, carried. Sorry. And then adjournment. Moved. Oh, sorry. No, this is the ratifying bylaw. One ahead of myself. Moved by Stephanie Jaworski, seconded by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that bylaw 19/2023, being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council the 6th day of March 2023. All those in favor? Carried. Now the adjournment bylaw. Moved by Martin Lang, seconded by Trevor Bougie. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry adjourn to the call of the chair at 8:05 p.m. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. All right, thank you, and I guess we'll see everybody at our next meeting. Thank you for those in the audience. Good night.